My man is back. My man's riding in on a cannonball like a goat. He's gonna do it again, and I'm gonna be so hyped. And he's gonna have Jay Garcia on his back, just like riding in. Whoop! Man, I wonder what they're gonna do with like Garcia, right? Just because this is about Kizaru, obviously, but we're just gonna talk about Garcia real quick. How is he gonna be introduced? Obviously, a lot of people are saying he's gonna go in and smack Luffy in the face, which would be fun. But just in general, like getting to the island, are they gonna have him real old man getting a stick and walk out to the island? Or is he gonna like jump from a boat to the island or something? Or is Kizaru gonna bring him like get him on his back, use his powers, and just boom, like that? You know what I mean? I think Kizaru's gonna have a fantastic entrance to Egghead because if anything else, people loved his entrance to Sabadi. And as you know, last year and maybe the year before, I wasn't that big of a Kizaru fan. I went back and reread The War. I reread Impel Down. I reread Sabadi. So, well, I know he wasn't in Impel Down, but you get my point. I reread a lot of the earlier parts he showed up in, and I actually do really like him. And also, I don't know, I just really like the purple tie, bro. I don't know what it is, right? It's got the suave. I respect the suave more, man. I respect it. You know, I didn't used to have that respect, but I have it now. So, you know, what can I say? But I wanted to talk about this real quick, and this is a genuine topic though, is how is he going to approach Luffy? Because we can have him, in my opinion, right, as I said before, all of the original 3 admirals are Yonko level in my opinion. But only the original 3, like I don't think Fujitora or Green Bull are admiral level. I think it'd be weird if Green Bull was the only, Yonko level. I think it'd be weird if Green Bull was the only admiral not to be as strong as a Yonko, so I feel like putting all the newer admirals in together like that makes a lot of sense, and we might even have a newer admiral come into it before the end of the story, finishing that trio, because, I don't know, man, I could see something happening, but now that doesn't make sense either, does it? Because the only admiral I could see leaving the story would be Fujitora. So it's kind of like that defeats the purpose at the end of the day. But it is something to think about, right? Because obviously we've got 2. It just feels weird to me, but it also feels right to me that the original admirals who have had more experience were both fighting for the position of fleet admiral. Which, if anything else, no matter what your agenda is, you have to agree that a fleet admiral is at least Yonko level. Because if the head of the Marines can't even compete with like Blackbeard or Shanks to a degree where it's like comparable, then what? Like, they have no possible way of defeating them, right? Because if you like, if all your, like, let's say for example, right, if all your top officers are commander level and only commander level, yeah, okay, if you gang up on one of them, alright, you might be able to beat them, right? So if like you got 5 of the Marines' top agents to just gang up on Shanks, you might be able to beat him individually. But he's got a crew of 10 people who are individually as strong as probably you, maybe even stronger than you individually, right? How are you going to beat that? You need to get a stellar stealth plan in place for 5 people, and that ain't happening. That's why I think he's always going to come in here and he's going to just wreck Luffy and tear him a new one, and I feel like it's going to be great to see. Now, I had the idea when I heard about, you know, people's opinions on Jay Garcia and how he's going to be approached, that if he attacks Luffy, he might show off the limitations of Gear 5 and how the Gorosei have similar abilities and they've kind of, that sort of thing, because obviously we have the planets and stuff, and how people are going around saying it's related to the idea that they orbit the sun, and how originally they thought they orbited the Earth, which is probably what Emu is. That's the big theory going around right now. And so having similar abilities would make sense, and then you'd be like, oh, so these are you're still limited, you don't understand your power, so it's time to take you out now before you get a full grasp on your abilities. That sort of thing, you know what I mean? Take out the hero before it's too late, or like take out the villain before it's too late. Before he regains all his power, we have to collect all 12 emblem rings. That sort of shit, right? And I don't know. I think I would prefer Kizaru just wrecking house, because we got a pretty good introduction to Green Bull, all things considered, and then he just flopped it. So if we have, you know, Kizaru, who's probably the most Joy Boy-esque character out of the out of the Admirals in the sense he's just sort of having fun, you know. He's kind of just having the crack, because because of his ability, his brain works so slow. He's just sitting there like, oh yeah, he's just kind of enjoying what he's doing, sort of thing. So I kind of, in a way, I think it's a perfect contrast to Luffy in terms of the Admirals and him having a fight. Because obviously, I don't think the Straw Hats are going to take on the Admirals end of series. I think that's going to be Sabo and some other characters. So having them fight Kizaru now would probably be a good way to benchmark it for the end of the series to a degree and see what he has to reach to. I also think it would make sense as well, because having him fight an Admiral and know about the Gorosei before he meets Shanks, to me, seems to work out very well. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I think there's a few more bits of information Luffy needs to know if we're gonna have him not meet Shanks now and meet him at Elbaf. So I think that works pretty well. Also, I think it would just make sense for the guy who's made of light to wreck up the futuristic islands, right? It just makes sense. You wouldn't bring in the prehistoric element, you bring in light, a power source of all this shit, and just wreck house. And it would be fantastic, and I think it'd be great, personally. A parallel to Sabati, we might even get Kuma coming in and saving his ass again. Right? Kuma might get his memories back and come in, and he might actually take out Kizaru or do something to Kizaru. And we might get Dragon showing up. Like, we might get a lot of stuff this arc, and I feel like the best way to build tension for that stuff to be revealed would be for Kizaru to wreck house. Obviously, people are like, well, that wouldn't make sense, he's a Yonko, but like, man, we kind of need to see Luffy's limitations, because Luffy has to strive for higher abilities, and obviously we're like, well, Shanks was his limitation. Like, Luffy can't do that whole hockey thing when he just looks out from the sea and hockey emits. Like, he can't do that. But we need to see him get his ass beat one more time, because every time Luffy gets a bit of one up, right, he goes post time skip, he sees he gets the post time skip, he sees he's so much powerful, more powerful than the pacifistas who he was struggling against in the war arc. And then we see people like Big Mom and Kaido put him back in his place. And I think we need that for Gear 5th. Gear 5th seems like an impossible ability. I mean, some people have Luffy over Kaido. That should tell you everything you need to know, right? And I feel like Kizaru's the perfect man to do that. Bring him back to pre-time skip days, considering we're getting all those pre-time skip vibes. It also makes sense because, it all ties into the NS lobby stuff and things as well, and how Sabati, because NS Lobby is being mentioned, which is Robin's main arc, and in Sabati, like, the biggest takeaway was when Robin was getting taken away, and that was heavily focused on because we were just recently over her arc. Obviously I had Brook, but no one thought about Brook back then because Brook was he didn't get his Soul King goatness until post time skip, so what can I say? I have to say I didn't really like Brook initially. I liked his story and things like that. I didn't like his gag as much. It's grown on me over time, I'm not gonna lie to you, to be honest. The gag is definitely like sat with me and grown over time. But I do think this is something I can't wait to see. Like, if we see Kizaru coming in, and obviously he doesn't care for technology, he doesn't care for advancement, he just does what he's ordered to do. And I think you need that straight-laced character who cannot be corrupted, right? To have that character who just goes, whatever, I've been ordered to do this, I don't care. And then he just goes and does it and destroys shit. Hell, imagine if we're having, like, the person who kills the original Stella Vegapunk is Kizaru, because he's like, I don't care how important you are to the world, I was ordered to do this, and he just does it. Right, he doesn't even say that, because he doesn't say much, he just does. And I think that's Kizaru's big approach here. I also think that's why they brought in a Jay Garcia, for example, right? Because we have to have someone who can give exposition, and Kizaru's just not that guy. He really isn't. So having Jay there allows for that to a degree. I also wonder how he'll react if he finds out that information. He probably won't care. So it'd be interesting to see how Kizaru approaches that, how he takes it. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out my ass. Probably I am. I have no idea. But I just want to see Kizaru wreck house or wreck shop. And what, like, is that too much to ask for? Like, I just don't want another Admiral to get humiliated. I want there to be some competition in that final war, man, and not just clones of the warlords. Because, man, I want some actual characters being antagonists in this war arc, man. I don't want there just being clones of characters, man. Please, everyone's a clone. Kizaru's gonna end up being a clone of the atom that created the Big Bang or something. He's like, oh my god, we sampled the Big Bang from Kuma's memories, and we re-engineered it into this ultimate being known as Kizaru the Suit Goat. You know what I mean? Like, what? I don't know. But seriously though, what do you think generally? Like, do you want there to be actual characters in the final war for the fights? Or are you okay with the Seraphim being like the main people that the Straw Hats take on? Not even the Straw Hats. Obviously, you know my agenda with Sabu versus Akainu, and I'd say if we get Zoro's backstory and Green Bull is somehow related, then I would put the Zoro and Green Bull agenda going. But I'm not doing that right now because we don't know anything about Zoro. But what do you want from the final war, and how is it going to involve Kizaru? And what are you hoping to see from Kizaru? How do you think he's going to meld with the 5 Elder Stars? Like, what's he going to do? What's kind of the vibe going to be with the two of them? Or is it going to be a negative vibe? Is it going to be a positive vibe? Let me know what you think.